There's one obvious question about the Tartaria Old World reset theory that most people ignore. If there was a civilization here before this one, if settlers moved into empty cities, then somebody's great-great-granddaddy saw it. Surely somebody would have passed down their story or written it in a journal. So where are these accounts? A YouTuber named Logan at a channel called Luminary Lighthouse claimed that he finally found one. A viewer named Jack left him a comment with this story. His ancestor, a high-ranking Mason out of New York, was sent to populate a town in Kansas that was already fully built out. Granite buildings, a capitol in the middle, 75 people walking into a finished city with nobody living in it. A story passed down in Jack's family with a journal backing it up. This is the crucial evidence that Tartaria theory has never had, and I had to check it out.
Word got back that along the Santa Fe Trail from the 1830s to the 1850s, there was several cities that were completely built out and nobody living there.
My grandfather told me all kinds of things. There's bullet holes in the walls from him shooting at ghosts. I know people who said their grandpas fought giants in the Korean War. Did that really happen? I don't think so.
I looked into what Jack said to see if his story was even possible. Crowley John, age 23 years, mustered in as a private February 27th, 1865. And you're High Mason before you're even born. Wow. I'm making up a story. Hold on.
You were body bagged in the first 5 minutes.
They make these claims and then they show you nothing. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inner World Podcast. We are together again. We got Dylan in the house. I've missed you, bro. We haven't recorded for quite some time.
I missed you too, mofo.
I see you got your tweaker sunglasses on. Good for you.
See that, everyone? It's skylight, daylight, facing east. It's the morning, the sun rises. It's really bright in here. That's why I'm lit so well.
Yeah, we, have these freak shows that are super attached to whatever thing that we're disputing, and they need to grasp onto anything. So they're like, he's wearing sunglasses in a live stream. He's a fraud. So we're going to start with a clip here.
And of course, they brought people out from New York to start the town. It was told through my grandfather, there was anywhere from 60 to 100 people that left New York altogether. And then they instantly had a town that they could move into. Now, I was told that my great-grandfather, my grandfather's father, was one of the persons leading everybody to get there. So
Okay.
My grandfather told me that he was instrumental for years in everybody moving into the town. Let's get you a place to live. We got lots of places here for you, all built out of granite. We can move you in that town that they named from about 1850 on.
Okay, so one thing that has come up repeatedly when I've looked into this old world reset topic question is, how come there's nobody that actually passed down a family story or actually remembered the old world in some way? And, that question I think is a really relevant one, because why would there be none of that? There's no diaries, no journals. There's only the opposite in the historical record. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because I found an example of somebody claiming to have a family history that remembers towns being built out. So let's go over what this is all about. First of all, the channel is a channel called Luminary Lighthouse. And this guy named Logan is the one that makes these videos. I've had a few back and forths with him. He seems like a nice enough guy. He complimented my work on the asylums, which I do appreciate, because it probably goes against things that he's put out there in the past, being one of these genre Tartaria old world reset guys. So what is coming in this episode is not some kind of like personal vendetta against Logan or Luminary Lighthouse or a desire to take him down. I'm just analyzing something that caught my eye, because this is the video. Did Jack's Masonic great-grandfather help found an entire Kansas town? So I'm not up to speed on all of his videos, but when I saw this one, I thought, oh, maybe this has got something good in it that we can sink our teeth into. Maybe there's some kind of family lore or some kind of record of these pre-built empty cities, right? Yeah. So before we get into it, Dylan, you have any preliminary thoughts about what you just heard?
Well, he said his grandpa told him. So is that admissible as evidence in any court? Hearsay? My grandfather told me all kinds of things. Specifically, my grandfather told me about ghosts in his house. You know, there's bullet holes in the walls from him shooting at ghosts. There's a gash in his upper lip from an Indian ghost shooting him with an arrowhead that pierced, and he said his teeth stopped it. Did that really happen? I don't think so. He told me he has never provided evidence. My grandfather also told me there was a puck named Jacob who haunted his property and in the wine cellar and all that shit. And my dad and him used to scare the hell out of me. So what your grandpa told you it's cool. It's a nice little family thing, but it doesn't mean anything. I know people who said their grandpas fought giants in the Korean War on the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah.
That's what their grandpa told them.
Right. And right there, you just invalidated the necessity for this whole video.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I thought the same thing, of course, but I figured I would watch the video because where I actually found out about it in the first place was on Luminary Lighthouse's Instagram, and he had posted this reel based on a comment. So this viewer, Jack Crowley, left Logan a comment on Facebook, and it says, I'm going to read the comment. Here is my favorite family story. My dad had a great-grandfather who founded a town in Kansas in 1840. He was the major for about 25 years because he was well loved by everyone. I think that means mayor. The J and the Y are pretty close together. And maybe an autocorrect problem. Then he says, a hidden journal found, written by him, said being commissioned a high mason in New York was asked to populate a new town that was fully built out. 75 or so people were guided to the middle of Kansas to a built-out town that had no one living there. Granite buildings, a Capitol-type building in the middle. He said there were so many buildings, not one home was built for over 20 years. Okay, so this is the comment that catches Logan's eye. If it was me, I would have saw the grammatical issues and I wouldn't have been interested personally.
Yeah. Punctuation is a hell of a drug.
I mean, there's a lot. And the grammar is as inconsistent as Jack's story, as we're going to find out.
But it doesn't, I don't want to be that guy though, because it doesn't invalidate an argument just because somebody doesn't know how to pronounce something.
They just have to poke fun of it a little bit. I mean,
it is indicative of the sloppiness.
It's the first red flag, right? But it's not like a deal breaker necessarily. Not everyone's great at typing, especially older generations. Okay. So assuming I was Logan, maybe I would jump on this comment and ask for more information because this is exactly the kind of thing that could potentially be a gold mine as evidence for the genre theory for the old world reset. You got to ask these questions. These are the first things I would ask. Does the hidden journal still exist? Got to figure that out. What was the ancestor's name? What town was it? Those are the things that I would want to know. So let me just track the details given in this first account in the comment. He says it's his great-great-grandfather. He says it's his father's great-grandfather, so that's Jack's great-great. Founded a built-out town in Kansas in 1840. He was a high mason in New York, which
what the hell
is not
that?
a real rank.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Never mind.
But maybe he meant master mason. I don't know. There is no such thing as high mason. 75 or so people were led to this town with so many buildings that no new houses were built for over 20 years. These were granite buildings and a Capitol type. You spelled capital with the wrong version of capital. A Capitol type building was in the center of town. So this would be really compelling stuff if it was true. And because it's so exciting, Luminary Lighthouse, I guess, Logan, I'm just going to call him Logan, invites Jack to do a live stream with him to recount his family stories. And that is over 100 minutes long. But the parts that actually pertain to the initial story that Jack commented on are pretty brief. So we're going to look at them in clips and then address them one at a time.
And real quick, before we begin, there's several things. The first is it's a journal. How do you know it's a journal and not an interesting piece of like fiction? And the reason being is sometimes the best fiction stories are set up in ways like that, as though the person is writing it, so it comes across as more authentic and helps with the suspension of disbelief and makes it like you're like reading a real, World War account or Civil War account or whatever it is. I do it with my fantasy stories. So do you know for sure it's a journal or it's a piece of fantasy work? The second is
Let me just address the first one real quick. There is no journal. He never produces it. It's never brought up in the stream. It's like just a made up detail.
And that's, there you go. Throw it out. But let's pretend there is and he just forgot to, okay? Still, how do you know? The second is you admitted to homes being built with granite, but they don't build homes with granite. They build like cathedrals and stuff like that. But let's say we entertain all of that. If it's granite, then that means it was quarried. And we have the technology to figure out where it was quarried. And that's where you have to find out where that was done and what era that is done. And that will date it. Very simple.
Jack left one of these comments on my videos. And the first one was, hey, my great-grandfather or your grandfather told you that his grandfather, right? So your great-grandfather, is that right, JJ?
Yeah, okay, so my grandfather told me about his father.
Okay, so right there in the beginning of their stream together, Jack has already contradicted himself. The original comment, he said, my dad had a great-grandfather, right? So his dad's great-grandfather would be his grandfather's grandfather. That's how generations work. And Logan's confused about this. He brings it up, and then Jack clarifies and says, my grandfather's father. So he's not even able to determine he's not even able to keep it straight which grandfather it is. This is all stuff I'm trying to help you out if you watch this, Logan. Like, these are the things that you should have just put down the call. Like, there was no reason to keep this call going, and maybe you can do like a retraction about this, but it needs to be dealt with. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to go and find out whether or not there's any believability to the story. When we look into the actual genealogy of Crowley's is important. It's because these dates don't match up with the rest of the story. So to fast forward a little bit, and we'll see it in a later clip, but Jack actually names the town that this ancestor was in, and he called it Council Grove, which is a town in Kansas. It's a real town. So looking into the genealogy of Crowley's in Council Grove, we're able to find quite a bit, actually. And there are Crowleys there. So, I'm not doubting that this guy, Jack, has ancestry in this area that he's related to. But like I said, the dates don't match up. He says, my grandfather...
Hold on a second. Hold on. How are you mofos out there going to knock me for wearing glasses because it's bright, but you're not going to question that dude's last name?
I know. He looks just like... the Aleister Crowley beast photo. He really looks like the guy. I know. I was holding that in.
Hold on. Let's not be.
He really looks like.
Let's not prejudice our schizophrenia. Okay. Okay. All right. All right.
I know. He totally looks like that Crowley. No joke. Okay.
Sorry,
so
I have to lighten it up. I can't help myself.
I mean, there's no other way to do this. So in the comment, my dad had a great-grandfather who founded a town in Kansas in 1840. He's already contradicted his own story, but we've got 1840 and some ancestor, great or great. We'll see. Now, in the video, like I said, the town in question is Council Grove in Morris County, Kansas. Jack is claiming was already built out with granite houses and a Capitol building. Later in the video, they actually name the High Mason ancestor who supposedly founded the town, J.J. Crowley. So the first thing I did, I just looked for records of J.J. Crowley. I found a page with information on cemeteries in Morris County run by the Historical Society. And there's a whole PDF with all of the cemeteries in the county mapped out and what graves are in each plot, very detailed. And I found J.J. Crowley right here. And all it has is the name. It doesn't have any dates attached to it, but it does have 47th New York Infantry. So we'll hold on to that detail. Also found it interesting that one of these Crowleys on the list was named Seth Hayes Crowley, because that's actually the first historical settler to the area of Council Grove, according to the historical record. All right, so this is the real founder. There's a real paper trail. There's real buildings he built.
Damn, he does look like a badass, though. Look at that guy.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He's a total legend. So, speaking of legends, he came in 1847, and there's a site called Legends of Kansas that says Hayes built a log cabin on the north side of the old Santa Fe Trail near the west bank of the Neosho River, close to where the commercial house later stood. The cabin served as both a store and a dwelling, which housed Hayes and his African-American slave named Sarah Taylor, who was familiarly called Aunt Sally. I mean, like, that guy just totally looks awesome. And here's he.
Is that guy related to him or no?
No.
Oh
but there was a Crowley named after him named Seth Hayes. So maybe there's some confusion in the family memory about that. I don't know.
And families can be interesting.
To that
so,
Crowley.
Just a brief aside, I had an aunt that within a couple years, she always thought she was Scottish, right? She's from South Carolina. And she found out that a significant portion of her family that claimed to be of that descent, of that Irish, Scottish descent, well, it turns out they were fucking Hessian mercenaries in the Revolutionary War. America crushed so hard they wanted to stay here and become American. That's how much even the enemies of America loved America. So it turns out she's German, but thought she was Irish, Scottish. She's almost in, senior citizen land before she found out these truths. So sometimes there's some stories about our families that, they get repeated by one generation and it just mythologizes.
Yeah, it's it's a game of telephone too. You're telling the next generation about it, but you heard it like 30 years ago. Your memory might not be that great. This is another photo of Council Grove, 1875. Look at these Tartarian granite houses. This is amazing.
Holy.
Like, what is this guy smoking?
I'll have 2 of whatever he's on, please.
It's crazy. But that guy, Seth Hayes, he was such a legend. He was the grandson of Daniel Boone and a cousin of the mountain man,
sense.
Kit Carson. Yeah. So he had like legendary ancestry, this guy. You can also go to a website called councilgrove.com history, and you can see the oldest buildings in the town. And I'll just back it up. Okay. This is the Ka Mission Historic Site and Museum, which was a school for boys from the Kansa American Indian tribe. We'll just let this scroll for a second. We got the Old Bell Monument, the Hermit's Cave. That's pretty cool.
And those mirror stuff found in Italy, but obviously you can tell by the mortar and stuff, it's modern.
This is the Last Chance store, which is the last chance before you hit the old dusty trail to the west. And yeah, there's nothing. This is their historic stuff. We'll talk about this building later. That's a pretty cool building. But that was built in 1892. There's a record about it. This is the oldest restaurant west of the Mississippi River. That's pretty cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then everything after this is pretty modern. So just wanted to show, you can go on Google Maps and look at Council Grove. You're not going to find anything Tartarian. There's nothing even that impressive. It's a nice little town, but it's not a very big town. It's like 2,000 people live there. It's very small. So back to what was being claimed about J.J. Crowley in the video. Claimed by Jack to be his great-grandpappy. I couldn't find a whole lot at first, but I found that 47th New York Infantry. So I started looking into that. I verified on the National Parks Service website because the National Parks maintains battlefields. So they actually keep records of like units and infantry roll calls and stuff like that on their website. And I found in the 47th New York Regiment a Crowley John Jay. So that's probably him. Fought on the side of the Union during the Civil War. And then I went to the New York government website that has the unit roster for their different regiments. And I found right here, Crowley John, age 23 years, enlisted to serve 3 years, mustered in as a private February 27th, 1865. So if he musters in at the 1865 at the age of 23, what do you think? That puts his birthday at 1842. If you remember Jack's original comment that got Logan talking to him, he said his great-great-grandfather found the town in Kansas in 1840. That seems pretty tough to do, and you're high Mason before you're even born. You're negative 2 years old. Wow.
I wasn't sure if he was saying that his great-great-grandfather was a high Mason or a high Mason commissioned his great-grand. I can't remember what it said, but it just,
Well, it's hard to say, but
without the punctuation, it's weird.
in the comment, it's hard to say, but in the, in the video, they talk
that is
about
the
it as
claim?
if he's like some big shot super Mason. So,
Gotcha.
okay. But this was the point in the story after I tracked down the records of J.J. Crowley and found out, hey, you weren't even born yet at the time that Jack commented that you found the town. I'm out. I'm out. It's over.
It's unfortunate chance, but it's like, this is why you got to vet guests, man. You got to vet them.
Yeah, you really do. And here's where I found some, what would you call it? He's complicit. Logan's complicit in this. Let me show you, because I messaged him because I noticed that the story was so full of holes. I lost any shred of doubt that it was a lie. And I said as much to Logan in a direct message. And he conceded that the story had a ton of holes, but insisted a definite connection without any other context. Then I told him that this Jack fellow was spinning a yarn, and I have not heard back from him ever since. He's the one that initiated contact with me, and I had some messages with him. And he even has the audacity to tell me, check out part 2, even better prayer hands. Well, we'll talk about part 2 near the end. It is worse, actually. It's even more made up. If we go back to the cemetery record, let me go. Here he says, it would actually be, let me zoom in. The dates were all wrong. It would actually be his great-great-grandfather, Alan Crowley. A ton of holes, but definite connection. Okay. So even though this isn't in the live stream they did together, now Logan is telling me in this message, it wasn't really the guy we talked about in that whole video, JJ. It was actually this guy, Alan. So we got to start looking into Alan Crowley instead. You would think that in good faith to his audience, he would correct the record if he was quite sure that they were wrong about this JJ Crowley guy, but that doesn't happen. It's never corrected. There's never mentioned again. They just move on, even though it was completely wrong. So
What's
here is
nice-
Alan. Go ahead.
What's nice is, I don't even want to talk about this guy. I don't know him before you brought this video, but you can clearly see there's like a correlation with like having no scruples and just trying to get attention. I don't know if it's because it's monetized or whatever, but it's also the importance of, I think, like this era. I see memes on this too, and I actually think I agree with it. This era of like the influencer is dying out because people are seeing how fake and how unsubstantiated and short term it is. And the next phase is actually going to be people with experience coming forward. Like I invited Al to come and hang out with us anytime he wants to. He worked in construction, right? And he was sending me videos that he was making fun of this shit like back in 2024. And it's hilarious. So it's like the era of people with actual world experience in what they're talking about, it's the subject matter, that's going to start overtaking this if people start talking about it, because there's nothing. Like we are seeing nothing, and we are seeing like little kid tactics. It's very childlike. I feel like we're dealing with like a 6-year-old.
Yeah, it's really weird. And this is just one thing that I've looked at since we last did a video on it. I've looked at all kinds of stuff people have sent me, and it's just one after another. Nothing to it. Like,
by the way, I'm willing to entertain that the guy misspoke and said great grandfather and meant second great. You know what I mean? Like that's super easy to do. Like I'm not totally throwing the baby.
Yeah, we are going to
I mean?
entertain it.
I'm trying to give
right
every
now.
grace that we can.
That's what I'm doing. Steel manning and everything. I'm doing work that they didn't do to try to figure it out. But on the subject, like something that just popped in my head, there's this channel, My Lunch Break, one of the biggest in the whole space. And I found a reel by him the other day that was like, it was just suggested to me on Instagram. It's showing these pictures of the St. Louis World's Fair. And this happened in 1903, okay? And on the side of this building that he's showing a picture of, it has the date 1803. And he's like, why would a fair in 1903 have a building with a date plaque of 1803? The official story doesn't make sense, okay? But if you know anything about the St. Louis World's Fair in 1903, it was called the Louisiana Purchase Exposition because it was 100 years after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. So they have 1803 on the building in 1903 because it's celebrating something from 100 years before the centennial anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase. What is wrong with you? Like, this is the thing that gets like 10,000, 30,000 views on his reel. Like, and everyone's like, yeah, these fairs are fake as fuck. The very first thing he says is a lie. Like, if he's the expert in exposing these fairs, he definitely knows that the 1903 St. Louis World's Fair was celebrating the Louisiana Purchase, which was an 1803 event. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I had nonstop, one after another like that, or just flat out AI generated images that have AI artifacts all over them. That's also becoming really popular. So going back to trying to do our best here with old Jack's story, Logan tells me that it wasn't JJ Crowley, it was Alan Crowley, but they don't actually state that in their video. I just get this in a DM. He's the secret true founder of Council Grove. And I found on the cemetery record that I looked at before, 1822 to 1891. So he was born in 1822. So if he really was the secret founder in 1840, who was a high Mason from New York, he would have been 18 years old. Now, I'm sure that there's been some 18-year-olds raised to like Master Mason before, if they're in the right family and all that. And maybe, like you said, maybe Jack just didn't have his story straight when he left that comment. After all, he's basing his knowledge off of family stories he allegedly heard as a kid, which would have been probably in the 70s. Now, in a second, we're going to see Jack, or later, we're going to see Jack change his mind about the founding date. He says exact words, we're speculating 1850 to 1854-ish. So that's a totally different time frame. JJ Crowley is still only 8 to 12 years old in that time frame. Alan would be 30 in that range. But here's the only thing they say about Alan Crowley in the whole video.
Okay, it says 60 years ago, his grandfather, Alan Crawley, came to that old historic town of Council Grove, and thus the pioneers of the Neosho Valley. So it says it right there that Alan Crowley, was the pioneer of the Neosho Valley.
Okay, so this is what Logan did to support the research to help Jack out. He did this research on his own. He tries to give him an ancestor who might actually fit the timeline of 1840 or 1850 or whatever he happens to say at any given moment, because he changes his mind constantly. I found the page that he was looking at. It's called Kansas Encyclopedia of State History from 1912. Okay. Now, there's a line 60 years ago, and it's my screenshot has different, let me back up, has different formatting because I zoomed it in. But you see how on the right, it's cut off? This was what was screen shared by Logan. So he cut off a few words on the right-hand side of the page that he was reading from. So what he read was, he read 60 years ago, Alan Crowley came to that old historic town of Council Grove, and thus the pioneers of the Neosho Valley. Not a complete sentence. You can tell the grammar's wrong. And he follows that up by saying, see right here, it says he's the pioneer of the Neosho Valley. But if you look, here's what it really says. 60 years ago, His grandfather, Alan, came to that old historic town of Council Grove and thus was one of the pioneers of the Neosho Valley. So I know that's like splitting hairs, but this is the kind of thing, like right in front of everyone's eyes, he just misreads the thing that he's quoting from and then interprets it the way that he feels like fits best to their theory. But after this, they just go on, I can't help but notice that he stutters when he's like the pioneer, like he probably knows he's stretching the truth. But either way, he's being dishonest right there. And they never again talk about Alan Crowley in the whole video. They just go back to saying it's JJ Crowley. Nobody seems to care or notice in their live chat. So looking into this,
so it's not really a lighthouse. It's more of a false beacon. How like pirates would set up a false beacon because they knew there's a reef or rocks that would lure the ships in, wreck them, and then they'd go pillage them before the ships would sink. That's really what we're looking at.
Totally not the luminary lighthouse it claims to be. I mean, he just straight up twisted the evidence right in front of everybody.
It's wild.
It's wild, right? So this guy, Clarence Crowley, that they were reading an encyclopedia page about, he was indeed a Mason, a Knights Templar, a member of many other orders, the Isis Temple, Mystic Shrine of Selena, yada, yada. So he was probably the son of a Mason too. His father was probably a Mason. Families did this. His initials are CC, Clarence Crowley. That's 33. Uh-oh.
How come nobody's calling that out? We got my glasses, whatever else.
Dude, the funniest thing about Masons and Tartaria channels is that whenever it suits their reset narrative, the Masons are literally the most evil people that ever lived. The worst organization behind everything. But when we're talking about Jack and his family, there's no shade at the Masons. Oh, yeah, he just built out this town and he told his family about it in the secret journal. Like, I have nothing against Masons personally. I think they're just like every other group of people. Some are good and some are bad. Every group has got a mix of everything. The whole every conspiracy equals Freemasons is one of those lazy conspiracy culture tropes that doesn't hold up.
Well, it's like what it's being used as in like other parts of the world. So like in early parts of the country, you see like the order is relevant because it is for like civilization and order and stuff, but like it's also kind of like a bridge. So it gets certain groups of people together to collaborate, where if this order didn't exist, these people would never see each other as allies. So there's a little stuff there, it has a bunch of functions, but I mean, especially in like older parts of the country, like where I'm from, almost everybody's family has people who are in the Masons.
Yeah. Individuals who are Freemasons and part of orders like this can use the network to their advantage to do something evil. No doubt. And it's been done, I'm sure. But it doesn't make Masonry itself inherently evil. You know what I mean? It's not like a guarantee of evil.
It's just a system like everything else, like every other cult.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to the ancestral whodunit later when we look at some other stuff they say about JJ. But we've already demonstrated he couldn't possibly have done the things that Jack claims he did. Logan clearly knows it, which is why he tries to offer Alan Crowley as the alternate in the video, but it doesn't stick and they just talk more about JJ. But now we're going to talk about the naming of this town, Council Grove, so we can talk more about the town itself.
Told him about his father, that he was a high-ranking Mason in New York and was trusted by his Masonic lodge to go onto the Santa Fe Trail and start a town. He went to Council Grove, Kansas.
Name he came up with.
Which
he just found the town and then came up with the name.
Okay,
Hold on a second. Hold on. So I'm the one that's a tweaker, but this guy's sitting here like this? And I'm the fucking tweaker?
It's nonstop too. Like he does this the whole video. Yeah. It's horrible. So that's where Jack names the location Council Grove. This was not even specified in his original comment. Remember that the original comment it was 1840. But even being generous and granting that he just guesstimated is nowhere close to 1840 when this really happened. The town, Council Grove, said to have taken its name directly from this 1825 treaty. Here it says at the beginning, John Quincy Adams, President of the United States of America, that's the president in 1825. And I won't read the whole treaty, but you have all of the Indian chiefs and United States commissioners who signed the treaty down here. So the town takes its name from the treaty in 1825. August 10th, an agreement was struck between the U.S. government and Osage Indian chiefs, establishing the creation of the Santa Fe Trail with a guarantee that the Osage would allow travelers to pass through their territory in exchange for an $800 payoff. Like, really not a great deal for them. They get $800 and the U.S. gets free use of their land for this road forever. Now, one of the U.S.
I just can't
commissioners,
get over how nice that handwriting is. It's like unbelievable to me.
yeah, and I think that this was like the day where I think John Adams wrote this by hand. I think the real president himself wrote this by hand. You know, that's the signature at the bottom. By the president.
Well, that's a signature, but it looks like it was written by the Secretary of State.
Okay, maybe. Well, really putting the secretary in secretary.
Whatever. I mean, it's whatever it is, it's amazing.
So one of the United States commissioners at this meeting recorded the events in his journal. His name was George Champlin Sibley, and he wrote, quote, "As we propose to meet the Osage chiefs in council here to negotiate a treaty with them for the road, I suggested the propriety of naming the place Council Grove, which was agreed to, and Captain Cooper directed to select a suitable tree and to record this name in strong and durable characters, which was done." He wrote this in August 5th, 1825. Now, I have in my notes the link to all of the records of George Champlin Sibley's journals. He wrote a lot of stuff. He was a surveyor. He was a very important figure in the westward expansion of the United States. And here is the famous oak tree that the name Council Grove was carved into in 1825. I mean, the town is very proud of this story. Like, this is their, it's their origin story. And it would be awesome if the carving still existed. That would really be cool. But the bark grew over it before photography ever existed. And then the tree got knocked down by a storm in the 50s. But they still have this little pavilion around the stump. And it's like kind of enshrined because this is where the town and the Santa Fe Trail were born by this tree. So this guy.
How come nobody's like talking about the oaks and the druids and the groves?
Right? It's all there. Yeah, I'm sure that these commissioners probably had some knowledge of that stuff. I mean, the time period 1825, learned people were really writing a lot about that history at the time. A lot of our favorite authors come from around then.
A lot of people in that part of the country come directly from there.
So this is the map, survey map that Sibley created, or he helped to create. I got this off of the Library of Congress. Cue all the whining about, you're just reading the official history back to us. How dare you? If you zoom in, you can see on this map from 1825, Council Grove is on
How
the
much
map.
are you getting paid, Chance? How much? Was it worth
How much
it?
could I get paid? I'd love to get paid. I'm ready for pay. So anyway, that didn't take very long to show how fraudulent Jack's story appears. There were no Crowleys present in the 1825 naming of the location. So the entire thing can be dismissed on its face because he's provided no evidence to support the story of his ancestor naming the town. That should have been the first thing Logan noticed. There's no journal. There's no evidence. The live stream should have never happened based on those things alone, but we'll just look at more of it because that's what we're here to do today. This is where it gets even more silly.
He was in New York as a high-ranking Mason.
Yes.
That's all I got out of him. My dad was a high-ranking Mason in New York. Then through other family members, I found out that, yes, he was sent from New York to go somewhere in the Midwest, maybe Kansas, but from the 1830s to the 1850s, the word on the street was along the Santa Fe Trail, getting back to the Masonic Lodge, which was the biggest one in New York City in the East Coast. Word got back that along the Santa Fe Trail from the 1830s to the 1850s, there was several cities that were completely built out and nobody living there. Not just Council Grove, Kansas.
Let's just watch the beginning of that again.
Um, uh, he was in New York.
I'm making up a story. Hold on.
I thought you were pausing it. I was like,
No,
like, why are you pausing it,
No.
Chance?
this is how the live stream was. And then he gets to the point where he's like, word on the street between 1830 and 1850 was that there's all these towns built out, and look at
Nobody
Logan.
living there. Not just Council Grove,
He's
Kansas.
just like, yeah, I love it. That's exactly what I want to hear.
He looks
I
like
won't
he's a
think
little bit
about
of an
this critically
expert
at
at
all.
hand rubbing, if you get my meaning.
It's painful to watch. Okay. So the whole word on the street thing, several cities already built out, not just Council Grove, Kansas. It's just absurd, but I can believe that Logan entertained it because it's exactly what he wants to hear for his genre, right? So why think about it? Let's just have a live stream with some rando on Facebook with no vetting at all. So this is Council Grove in 1873, a panoramic map. And the town is actually barely any bigger than this now. I mean, it barely grew at all. It has a population of about 2,200 people today. Remember Jack's original Facebook comment? Granite buildings, granite houses, a Capitol type building in the middle. Well, zooming in here, do you see any Capitol buildings, bro?
I didn't see any granite houses.
No. And these obviously is just a drawing, right? So it's not like a reality, but this is not a pre-built out town. Okay. So I started looking for the oldest photos I could find, just looking for any granite whatsoever. Here's the town today. This is like literally the whole town. And if we go back, there's the river that goes to the middle, and there's a little section of town here. And then there's the main section of town down at the bottom right. And coming back to the Google overhead map, there's the river going through the middle, and this yellow line is Main Street. And pretty much all of the town is on Main Street, and everything surrounding is just like some houses. So the town is not big. It has barely grown at all. Looking at some old photos, this is the trading post, Schmeffler and James. I found all these at kansasmemory.gov. The photos have full provenance given with them. They show the back of the photo wherever there's something written on the photo, and they have some idea of what is actually there. Maybe it's lying. Maybe this is all just AI generated in 1900 to fool everybody, but I don't think so. So this is 1860 to 1870, somewhere in that range. I would say, based on the way the photo looks, that's probably true. Remember all that forensics we did about photography in that previous episode? You can see the blurry horses that are not standing still. The people are trying to kind of stand still for a photo, but even some of them are blurry. So probably accurate. At latest, it could be 1880s, but 1860 to 1870 is totally possible. Here's 1870 to 1875. We've got some blurry stuff. This is the main street that we just looked at on the map with the yellow line. You got a boot shop, a shoe shop, a lumber yard, a blacksmith, a wagon shop, the church in the background. Here's Main Street. This is the same thing. The wagon shop is right here in the middle. And here it is from the other side. So we're looking down the street the other way. Same rough time period.
I think what's so interesting about this, Chance, is you can see how basic life is, but harsh, or like it's almost like the circumstances of life are what dictate the culture you have to develop. Do you know what I mean? Like in a certain like that to function, you have to dictate, like you can see why some things would not be acceptable. Like, you know, like why certain things are necessity for survival and why you would have to develop a culture to conform to that. And I think that's what's really interesting when I look at this.
This is the Hayes house. This was the founder, his town or his building. This actually became the restaurant that is the oldest restaurant west of the Mississippi, still there today. I think the roof got replaced, but it's mostly the same building. Here is North Main Street. Later on, late 1870s, late 1880s. It could be a little later than that. That's what they're guessing. I mean, we have horse and buggy here. And finally, we're starting to see some at least 2-story brick buildings. I don't see any Tartaria here. I definitely don't see any granite. Here's the grocery and provision store. I would say this is in the 1890s because you have a guy walking and he's still sharp. This is probably one of those early Kodak handhelds that had actual quick instant exposure. That didn't come about till like 1891 or 2. This is the Cottage Hotel, named after, or this was after 1880 because they built an addition to it called the Queen Anne Edition. Obviously, this is the 50s or 60s based on the cars. Still does not look like anything granite. The Council Grove National Bank right here. So anyway, all of this was really easy to research or find. Logan and Jack did not show any of this, okay? They didn't show anything in the town except one photo, which I'll show you later. 2 photos, I guess. So they're not really supporting they're not really being honest about whether or not this looks like a town that was built out and any of his claims were accurate. They ignore the stuff. They literally in the stream just ignore everything, every shred of evidence they can ignore that would disprove Jack's story instantly. They also, though, what I think is interesting is they missed the Great Fire of 1886. There was a Great Fire in Council Grove. You would think they would jump on that because the genre, that's one of the template things of the genre. Oh, there was a Great Fire and it was intentionally set to destroy the evidence of the old world. Ha, we got you.
Melted brick, ancient technology. Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't even notice. That's how shallow their research was. They didn't even know there was a fire. Even calling it a Great Fire is only relative to the size of the town. It was not that big of a town. They lost a bank, a newspaper office, and 6 or 7 other commercial properties on Main Street. And in my opinion, there's nothing strange about a fire in September in Kansas where it's dry and dusty and hot that spreads to more than one wood-framed building. Totally normal. Totally not weird. What is interesting is how quickly they rebuilt the downtown. According to the history, they were able to reopen most of the destroyed businesses about a year later, which I think is pretty cool. That's actually quite impressive. And this is the most notable building that got built in a year, the 1887 construction of the Morris County State Bank building, now called the Council Grove National Bank. Now, as we saw from those earlier photos, I think that's probably how they were dating things to like 1860s, 1870s, because in the mid 1880s is when these type of buildings started getting built. So if these buildings aren't there in the photographs, then they're not, then it's, earlier than 1887. They can be sure about that. Here's
so I'm just a little confused. We've been on this for about a half hour, a little bit more. Where does the ancient civilization in Tartaria come into play for this?
It doesn't.
Oh, okay. Oh no, fair enough. I thought that I thought we were doing I thought we were doing Tartaria. I'm sorry. I thought we were doing Tartaria today.
Yeah, old world reset, right? Like my great grandpappy came to this town and it was an empty city all built out and we had granite buildings and a Capitol type building. Okay.
We're just
And
toe
then they
tagging
make these claims
Logan.
and then they show you nothing of
Gotcha.
the town.
Yeah,
They
you
show
were
you
body
nothing.
bagged in the first 5 minutes. The guy was
I
body
mean,
bagged.
we did, right? But now we're just getting to see the history of a little unique, quirky town in Kansas. Cool.
Love it. No, I'm here for it. This is so cool to learn about this town.
Yeah. I mean, this one is really cool too. The Farmers and Drovers building from 1893, supposedly.
That kind of has like some of the elements that these people always like to speculate about, right? Like that's the energy transmitter, free energy.
Yeah. Yeah. If there was one building, it would be this one or the courthouse, right? But they don't even show this building. And this is the only one that has anything like, a Tartaria vibe to it, potentially. And they don't even show it. I don't understand them.
What I love about this is you can tell this is like from like that turn of the century, because there's a lot of stuff in Los Angeles that looks like this, where it has those kind of cool eccentric tops to the buildings.
And look at these the tops of windows. Clearly it was mud flood.
Totally
Clearly
buried. It's so obvious that that's buried building being re-inhabited by foreign invaders.
It's so obvious. Can't you tell? It has nothing to do with anything else. It must be mud flood. So this is, I mean, like my house, I'll just say, my house has little holes to the foundation that are about this big.
Yeah, they all do it. There's a reason for that. I forgot what it is, but there's a very specific reason they do that.
Yeah, it's not evidence of anything. Well, I'll cover that stuff in the future when I can take more time to look at it.
I just remember
Right now,
that was one of the things early on that people were debunking. They were like, you guys have no idea, like, because with the mud flood stuff, a lot of people were like, no, and they showed why all those windows and stuff are like that. So basically there's several reasons for the windows in the basements. But when you talk about an intentional architectural design, English basements, 18th, 19th century townhouses often used a raised semi-basement design to place kitchens and staff quarters below the main floor. So that creates light and airflow. That's why.
It's lighting and air for the basement level. Big mystery. No, it's the mud flood. They're hiding the mud flood, bro. So back to that construction boom that happened after the fire. When I say construction boom, there actually was such a catalyst for building because of all this downtown damage that a lot of local construction companies got really wealthy and big at that time. And the Gilded Age was happening in the Americas. So Americans were generally more wealthy. And that's when you start seeing these old wooden frame buildings replaced with brick and limestone ones. And it's when they went ahead and upgraded the courthouse that they had from like a log cabin built by the original guy, Seth Hayes, into a nice masonry building. So the courthouse is what we're going to look at next.
But hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Do we not? I mean, because to me, that looks like a facade. To me, it looks like that building, maybe the exterior is brick, but like if you were to like actually go to the blueprints, a lot of it is wooden construct. Or is that all, are they saying that's all brick?
I did not look into this building that closely.
I was just curious. And by the way, I come from New England, and Al Dog can attest to this because the place we grew up and spent a lot of time in is Lowell, Massachusetts. And if you've ever heard of the mills, the mill girls, a lot of our industry is in that part of the country. They were brick buildings, but that's like the early 1800s to 1820s, when that stuff's built. Looks almost like Victoria, England.
So I just did a quick search about it, and it says the Farmers and Drovers building is not wooden framed. It's constructed with solid brick and stone masonry exterior load-bearing walls. The local craftsmen did use wood for interior framing, flooring, and some decorative woodwork.
That's exactly what I expect.
Yeah. So, and that after the fire, they, I think, wanted to get away from wood framing for the reasons of they just lost a bunch of their infrastructure to a fire. So I was like, when did they get a railroad? All right. Because if they're doing all of this construction and they're bringing in all this brick potentially and other kinds of stone, the people are going to say, hey, how did cowboys do this with just donkeys? That's what they always say. Well, Council Grove got a railroad depot in 1869, quite early. The famous MKT line. I know about this because I'm from Missouri, which is right next to Kansas, and there's a lot of trails that follow the MKT line, like the walking trails and stuff. We call it the KT Trail, Katy Trail. So all the materials they needed could have easily been transported to the site of various buildings in question, and this is their next. This is the only other image they show of Council Grove besides the courthouse. So keep that in mind. I've shown you lots of stuff from Council Grove. Literally all they show in their whole stream is the courthouse and this. No other images in the whole stream. If that doesn't just totally sink their whole credibility right there.
But you got to think, to have that picture in the 1860s already, and a store, 2 stores being well established, I bet that was done in the 1850s.
Yeah.
Not the 1860s.
It says Miss J.J. Crawley's Saddlery. So boom, it's got the name JJ. That's the man. That's the man
John
we're talking
James
about.
Crowley, yes.
So we'll leave this up so we can see the image of what we're talking about. But for some reason, Jack identifies this picture as the 1860s, even though right in front of his eyes, the caption from the museum that posted this picture says it's the 1900s. I started looking into info about the saddlery that they were showing because they made such a big deal about it. And that's actually where I first came across the local history book that I brought up earlier, The Story of Council Grove on the Santa Fe Trail, written in 1921. It was built on her father's histories of the town from 1876, 1886, and 1891. That's what it says. And I found photos in this book. First of all, there's Seth Hayes Crowley was mentioned in this book, the guy that I showed from the cemetery records that had the name of the founder but was a Crowley. And it states indeed specifically he was named after the pioneer and not the pioneer himself or even related to him. And in this photo, the book says on page 21, A.J. Collier and Alan Crowley were counted as old settlers when a photo was taken about 1880 of a group of men who lived here in the 50s. Both had farming interests near town and were closely connected in business and church relations, being active in the church. Mr. Collier held several county offices. Mr. Crowley had one son, Seth Crowley, and one daughter, Mrs. Will Welsh, living here now. So one of these guys is the Crowley, Alan Crowley, not JJ, the older one. And here's a screenshot from that book. Now, what I want to say is that we've just found out Alan Crowley came here this confirms what we already had found out before. Alan Crowley came to the town in the 1850s. But remember in the last clip I showed you, they looked at the 1900 saddlery, and Logan says these exact words. So boom, it's got the name JJ. That's the man. That's the man we're talking about. So JJ was not a pioneer settler. Maybe he was the son of one, maybe not. Elsewhere, we're going to look more into this because I'm going to show you in a minute that Alan Crowley, the guy in one of these gentlemen in this photo, is not even related to JJ Crowley. They are completely different Crowleys. So whenever I get told that it's not JJ, it's Alan, he can't be related to JJ Crowley and Alan Crowley. Jack is related to one of them, not both of them. So that's a big deal because we'll just get there.
Hold on. Go back to that photo. Go back to the photo of the building that they put so much stock in. Yeah. In the studio chat, I sent you a link. If you could share that, I'm going to show you where I grew up and where people like Al Dog grew up. And that is a mill that's was in use at its height in the 1820s. So it's way older than this shit. and look at how nice it is. And just click through some of these photos. And this is what I don't get about all these Tartaria people is the actual, if you wanted to make this case, the best evidence, click the arrow and just go through them. That's not even the one that I wanted you to see. But like the best evidence of this stuff is actually in older parts of the country if you wanted to spin this narrative. But I think a lot of you are so stupid, you have no idea about actual America and older America because you're not from any of these parts. So you didn't grow up seeing the actual antiquity of America like people like myself did. And that's the difference why someone like me looks at these and you're talking about Utah? Utah, motherfuckers? Utah? The hell's Utah got to do with being ancient? Look at that. That's what I wanted you to see. Look at that. There's so much more you could make a case about. And people were making way more advanced stuff than what you're showing.
I mean, look at this masonry in the canal.
That's what I wanted you to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's in bumfuck Lowell, Massachusetts, which is like a downtrodden area. I mean, it might have had a boom since I left New England, but that was like the place was in the dumps.
Okay, so check out here. That's a great tangent. But check out here what they have to say about the ambiguous is either great or great-great-grandfather. They never keep that straight, but check this out.
And everyone loved him because he was just so helpful and loving and feel welcomed into the town. Well, he was so well loved that, yes, he wasn't registered as the mayor, but in that town that they named from about 1850 on, for 20 years, it wasn't a town, but he was considered the mayor of that area.
The mayor, yeah, because he was the most liked person, and he was calling the shots. I mean, he's a Mason, so I mean that makes sense. That makes sense, right, John?
He's eating it up too. Look at his eyes.
Yeah, he's eating it up. He loves it. It's amazing for his narrative, I guess, grift, we'll say at this point. And he said, remember, Jack, in the original comment that started their whole dialogue, he said that his ancestor was mayor for 25 years. He misspelled it and wrote major, but he said 25 years. And here he just told us he's not the mayor. He's the unofficial mayor of the town. So it's like hedging, I guess. He wasn't really the mayor, but he was the mayor. It's total nonsense. But if we remember in the previous paragraph here, it says about A.J. Collier and Alan Crowley being mentioned together as old settlers, how A.J. Collier held several county offices. It says nothing about Crowley holding any offices at all. You would think that history would say that if it's Alan Crowley and not JJ. JJ just seems like a regular old saddle maker guy, like not that big of a deal at all. He's never mentioned other than right here. We've been assuming all this time JJ must be the son of Alan Crowley, which would mean that Jack is a descendant from Alan to JJ to his grandfather to his father to Jack. But guess what? Chapter 10 of this history book says, after 1880, we recall many families who called Council Grove home. A.J. Curtis, J.J. Crowley, and then it lists a bunch of others. And it says, after listing all these families, came in this decade. Okay? So there's already Alan Crowley there from 1850. Alan Crowley's there from 1850, and then J.J. Crowley shows up 30 years later. And of course, we could have already deduced this, that he wasn't born there, because John J. Crowley, the 47th Infantry Regiment of New York, he's from New York. He fought in the Civil War from New York and then moved to Kansas. These two Crowleys are probably almost probably not related. I'm going to just throw it out there. They're two different Crowleys, not related. Jack is probably descended from JJ. There's probably some kernel of truth to the old family history being from the town. So it's a very tiny kernel. JJ,
and it might have been something they used as clout. You know what I mean? Like it might have been something that their family just used as clout to get, make deals or whatever, just get an easier time. And it just sticks, Yeah. Tell a lie long enough, you believe it.
But the only Crowley that came from New York that we can determine was JJ. And that's the whole story that he gave. The whole story he spun was that he brought an exodus of people from New York to an already built out town. So that's, toe tagged, as you said. I mean, these guys are so full of it. The dude they're talking about isn't even related to a pioneer. He just
we
is a
don't
guy
know that they're
came
not
in the 80s.
related. They might be from the same family. That might be
Maybe
how he
somewhere
found
down
out
the
about
line.
it. It's like, oh, Uncle Alan or whatever is out there. You should go check that out. Whatever. It could be any number of things. It's not worth it's not worth descending into and making claims.
It's not
it's
his
worth
father.
bringing up to show that it might, it's not as purported.
We'll say
by.
at minimum, though, there's very little reason to believe that Alan Crowley was the father of Jack Crowley. That does not track.
That's a good.
Which means that the guy who is actually a pioneer settler to the town is not a grandfather to Jack. Like that does not
Correct.
That does not make sense. So let's drop the hammer. Let's drop the gavel. I'm going to go through the verdict. Okay. What I think happened in this dialogue, this is what I think happened. Jack has some real ancestry in Council Grove, but he's fuzzy on the details. Jack likes Logan's videos and he's really into the old world reset theory. Jack either misremembers or flat out makes up a story he heard from his grandfather. I think he embellished a story from his grandfather that he probably heard way back in the 70s about J.J. Crowley, his grandpappy's father. Maybe it's a dementia onset thing and he really thinks that he remembers this. Could be. Or he's lying for attention. Neither option is very nice to think about. I can't really come up with any other possibility. But the chain of events. Logan reads the Facebook comment from Jack and gets excited. Like me, he's wondered if there are any folks who actually remember the old world or the found dead structures, the empty cities. He jumps on the chance to talk to Jack, who keeps feeding him the tall tale because now he's getting attention from one of his favorite YouTube micro celebrities, and it feels good. Logan does very shallow searching into the records of the town. He finds some Crowleys, finds out they existed. That's good enough proof for him, so he invites Jack to do a live stream together. Jack tells a different version of the story on air than he did in the comments in almost every detail. He never produces a journal. It's never brought up. The journal that was the whole cause for this, the evidence, the secret journal. Occasionally, Logan stumbles on various elements of the story being changed, but he never addresses it. Instead, he prefers to try to help Jack look like he's onto some shit because it supports the genre theory. They conflate multiple Crowleys. They never show any real research or photos of Council Grove, past or modern, except JJ's saddlery and the courthouse. Their whole reason to speak fizzles out so quickly because Jack knows little more than what he's made up, and Logan has nothing else he's willing to show about Council Grove, that by 30 minutes in, they're just rambling about Jack's 20th century family tree, talking about completely off-topic, pointless stuff, getting excited about secret society memberships of certain forefathers, asserting
memberships.
Asserting that
Hi, Mason. That's what it's. I'm thinking.
I think so, man. And they were asserting stuff like being a Knights Templar means you basically run the town. You never get to be a Knights Templar unless you're related to the founders of the town. Watch this. This is the last clip.
John J. Crowley's brother, who is Augustus Crowley, they were in the Oddfellows. The son was Clarence A. Crowley, born in 1880 in Council Grove. So this is generations after, still having a lot of control. Okay,
how he kind of helped run the town.
You got it, and that's what I'm.
Yeah.
Yes, so he was an attorney, well, of course, right? Attorneys have a lot of stuff. Prominent member. He was a Knights Templar, people, which is that's another level. I feel like, or it's up there. He was in the shrine. Okay, he was Isis Temple of the Mystic Shrine in Salina.
You get that far up the ladder in a small town.
Yeah, right.
If the father and the brother weren't like the founders.
Yes, right. Yeah, he was pretty much everything you need to be to have some control in that town.
And of course, they brought people out from New York to start.
When you
Okay,
rewatch that, you'll see me mimic him.
Oh my God. I mean, maybe this is why of all the Tartaria channels I've looked at, these are the first guys that put their faces on camera.
That's what I was saying in your comments to one of the people. I want to see what these commenters, I always tell them, because they comment on the way we look and stuff, and it's always like, put yourself up there. I want to see what you guys look like, and I guarantee the majority of them are not healthy looking or attractive.
Yeah, both in that last clip we watched, both of their eyes are crazy.
You know what I would love, and I understand you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but like, I would love for you in the intro to this video, the sizzle reel, to like just in your narration be like, is there any legitimacy to Tartaria? And just cut to him going,
That's great.
I'm
in.
I would fucking love that. Even if you could just do it for me.
I'll do it for you. Thanks. That's a great idea. Great producer credit for Dylan. So yeah, compelling stuff, right? They're Knights Templar. That means they must control the town. So that's like 30-minute to 40-minute point. And then for the rest of the 105-minute stream, they're just talking about random Tartaria template tangents, the millennial reign of Jesus, and all kinds of stuff like that, having nothing to do with Council Grove, having nothing to do with Jack's alleged story. So there's really
not to hate Chance, but as you know, I've told you a bunch of times, I live in a pretty religious area, and this is very reminiscent of people talking about religious details in the Bible. When I'll be at like a coffee shop writing and researching, I'll hear them and they're having the same conversation over the same fraudulent shit. And they're like feeding each other. And you can see them doing that here. It's the same concept, just in a different context.
No, it totally is. I mean, this Tartaria stuff is a religion. And they've now connected it to
you believe too? You're a believer? You're a believer? You know?
So that was the verdict on Jack and what he had to offer. He had to offer about 30 minutes of talking about his story, and with mostly Logan trying to prop it up. And then they just get into other genre nonsense. And I'm not going to discuss it because we've already discredited the whole thing just by looking at the beginning of the video. So why waste our time? And they're just jumping around. Coming up in the members only part 2 of this episode. For the first time in all of my searching, I think I found an anomaly of the construction story maybe not making sense to what the historical record says. Either the first photo is incorrectly labeled, or 2, the panoramic drawing idealized the courthouse far beyond what it actually looked like, or 3, the historical record is fabricated to hide the old world reset. And then we ask, what can we infer about the psychology of fraud? My dad, he's like an actual treasure hunter, an amateur archaeologist. I was like, what's the prevalence of fraud and forgery? So when Jack tells us we're looking at the biggest and best building in town, he doesn't even know the right decade it's from or even close.
I'm not saying anybody we've talked about is a shill, but I think something more sinister is in fact going on in these spaces.
To unlock the second half of this episode and access the entire archive of our research, join Interverse Plus or become a supporter on Dylan's Substack. But now I need to talk about Luminary Lighthouse and Logan. I'm going to say again, I don't have any agenda against Logan personally. I don't have any evidence directly that he's like a grifter or intentionally deceiving people. The way their eyes look, it's like they're more just fanatics with a belief system, like you said with the religion. And, they might really think that they're dropping truth bombs. But we will be able to have undisputed evidence here. I've already shown this, but I'm going to show it again. Here it comes. And I'll zoom in on this. His belief in Tartaria blinded him to how he was being taken for a ride by Jack Crowley. Not once, but twice. Okay? This is where he says, check out part 2. Even better. And I also said to him that his story has holes in it. And he says the dates were all wrong. It would actually be his great-grandfather, Alan Crowley. A ton of holes, but a definite connection. Except I was able to find out that Alan Crowley, if JJ is his great-grandfather, Alan Crowley is not Jack's great-great-grandfather. They're not father and son. There's no way. Okay. I'm not even convinced that Jack's related to him. And let me even show you a free, easily accessible family public tree. John James Crowley Sr., born in 1845, New York, lived in Morris, Kansas City, Winnedoke, Kansas, United States. He died in 1897 in Council Grove. That's what it says right here.
But not before enlisting in the Army out of Brooklyn.
Out of Brooklyn. So we look at the family tree line here. All right. Where does it say this? Oh, the son of James Crowley and Joan Holsong. Whoops. Alan Crowley ain't JJ's daddy. It's just not true. And I've already suspected that, like I said, based on JJ moving to Council Grove from New York.
Now I get why you said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were right.
They're trying to play it off like that Alan is JJ Crowley's dad. And here's the really damning part against Logan. This is the same website. And this is a screenshot from their video. Okay.
So you followed the nuggets that they left only to see, like, if you just scrolled up or just looked in the context.
Yeah.
All of this would be debunked.
I don't know if it's intentional or not, but he's using the same genealogy website as I did, the same public site that proves Alan is not JJ's father. He's on the same website. He just doesn't show that detail. And they just keep pretending. They just keep pretending like Alan is JJ's grandfather, and thus Alan Crowley, the pioneer, is Jack's great-great-grandfather. Okay, because Logan, just over here, remember, he said Alan is his great-great-grandfather. The evidence that Logan himself shows on screen proves that that is not true. So he just lied to me. I don't know if he knew it or not. I feel like they just become blind to everything that does not agree with what they already think. Remember, Logan said to me, I've been holding this for the very end. He said, check out part 2. Even better, prayer hands emoji. Well, Dylan, what do you think is in part 2? Let's look. Did the Mormons really found Salt Lake City? Part 2, Jack's story time.
These are his thumbnails.
Yes. Just
oh my goodness, Mano.
Jack story time. Jack telling stories for about an hour. Let me tell you the story of Jack's story time. We're not going to bother like thoroughly going through this because it's so, again, nothing admissible in court. This time, instead of familial oral history, the story is secondhand from an unnamed Mormon coworker. According to Jack, around 2012 or 2013, a Mormon coworker showed him diaries belonging to his Mormon family, passed down through the generations. The diary's author was a 14-year-old girl who was, quote, 3 people behind Brigham Young when the Mormons arrived at Salt Lake Valley. By 1852 or 1853, she married Brigham Young herself, quote, before she was 18 or 19. She kept a diary every night. The coworker showed Jack 3 journals and read from one of them, and in the account stated that Brigham Young looked out over the valley and saw a fully built-out granite city already standing, specifically naming the Mormon Tabernacle, the Mormon Temple, and a Capitol building. Womp. The overall format is the exact same as their first stream. Anecdotal, completely based on a document that nobody but Jack has ever seen, allegedly.
I now see why you got so into that Mott and Bailey fallacy. It really is everywhere in their work, huh? It's like
it's the whole thing. Yeah,
it is. It's
just
so
like,
interesting.
well, we know they're lying about history. Okay, well,
and by the way, no offense to Mormons, but just being a Mormon, making a claim, you automatically discredit yourself because your entire religion and basis of your secret society, if you will, cult, is based on fraud and the idea that there were some sort of golden tablets in a variation of Egyptian that God gave Joseph Smith the ability to translate, which you will never find in the historical record anywhere. So it's like everything that this automatically discredits you. So I would, if you were a serious researcher about the Tartaria stuff, this is not the angle to take if you want to get credibility. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but that's the reality.
Let me tell you a little more about this. Jack claims that the Mormon Church was searching for diaries like these that he saw 12 or 15 years ago, that so that they could never be allowed to be shown to the world because the Mormons would seize them. So that's why nobody saw them except Jack. The co-worker showed it to him, but had to keep them secret because the church would steal them. So Jack is claiming that he was shown these diaries once by a man who is now dead over a decade ago. Logan, this is what we call unfalsifiable. It has no bearing in an actual investigation. It has no weight in a court of law. It has no credibility, even as an anecdote. That being said, the buildings that Jack named as being already there in Salt Lake Valley, all of them have documented construction history. He's claiming the Capitol building was there that wasn't even started to be built until 1912. Okay? That's the easiest thing to rule out. Special Boy Jack also makes the claim that 5 great-grandmothers back, my grandmother also married Brigham Young. We know Brigham Young was polygamous, so I guess anybody could claim they had a great-great-great-great-great-grandma that married Brigham Young. But just doing the math, 5 greats back, Jack would be the 1700s. So that's nonsense. Unless you just were throwing out greats without thinking about it, I don't know. The stream starts with Logan telling Jack that they're live because apparently they spoke for a while before recording. Jack gets visibly worried and says, I can't remember all the things I said. That's a tell, because someone making stuff up might have trouble remembering what they made up. A real memory would be easy to retell. But to cap it all off, this is the description of this video. It says, I'm typing this literally right after the live because without a doubt, these are some of the best stories out there when it comes to old world theories and research. If you're interested in this kind of research, you have to hear what Jack says in this recording. There are pieces in this conversation that feel like major keys to the overall mystery and may seriously help check some boxes for you. Jack drops everything he has on the mainstream Mormon story and gives us a glimpse into a version of the past that, in my opinion, makes a whole lot more sense than the story we've been handed. Please listen all the way through and show Jack some love for being such a rock star and sharing these stories with us. I'm so grateful we connected. Share with everyone. I didn't get that in the screenshot, but that's what it says in the next line. So he's
hold on. At least he says in his opinion. Makes a whole lot more sense. Well, because when you look at this from the opinion of a crazy person or a numpty, doesn't really matter which, then you can just be like, yeah, it's not the opinion of a serious person.
No, not at all. But what does that opinion say about him? You know, that's up to the audience to decide. My opinion is that this whole thing is so typical of the entire genre of old world Tartaria reset theory videos that's the reason I showed you guys this. I don't enjoy having to do this that much. You know, the only thing I enjoy about this is learning history as I go about parts of the country that I didn't know so much about. You know, Kansas is just a few hours to the west of me. That's interesting to me. Like the history of the Santa Fe Trail, how the Adams administration kind of like conned the natives out of giving up all of that pathway, which led to them, you know, just a few decades later in the century, the Kansas settlers are now basically taking over all this land around them, when originally they were supposed to just have the land that's on the trail itself, right? So there's lots of shady stuff about the history. There's lots of whitewashing of the history, but what's whitewashed is the government itself, the country itself, like whitewashes the mythology about westward expansion, about the founding fathers, about all these things to create a version of America in people's minds that is not really true to life when it comes to how nice that mythologized version makes us look. You know,
Well, you can kind
our
of see it in
ancestors
Israel
were,
right now, like what they're
yeah,
doing in Palestine. And it's like we basically did that to the natives. You know, this
yeah,
is we're seeing it in real time. And it's like, okay, well, we weren't alive then, so there's nothing we can do about it. But it's like at some point, you who are alive at the time that it's happening need to have the pattern recognition skills to see what's going on. So even though you can't change the past, you can at least stop what's happening in the present.
totally. So I bring that up because that's the Mott and Bailey. We know they're lying to us about history. I agree. There's lies in history, especially the grand, overall sweeping, mythological type of narrative, the big picture narrative, the unifying story, as Socrates in Plato's Republic talks about the noble lie, the noble lies about society. That's all, worth investigating and worth getting to the truth about. But just because we know that history has lies or inaccuracies in it does not mean that you get to jump all the way to unproven nonsense like the old world reset, mud flood, Tartaria, millennial reign, all of these constellations of things. And that's what the genre does over and over again. And you know what? We'll do other stuff too, but I'm going to keep attacking this until I feel satisfied that I have covered all the different facets of the theory satisfactory to myself.
Yes. And Chance, I don't want anyone who sees this to be afraid to send you something if there's something of concern. Like
I want them to.
Yeah. So listen, what I would like to see is I would just like there to be way cooler material than this that you send him that's like, hey, what about this? This is way more mysterious. Just something that's actually worth looking into, that like when we look into it, it's still kind of fulfilling to see it, fulfilling to see like, oh, damn, how did they do that? I'm not saying everything has to be like that, but like you don't have to be
like in a
worried.
video game where you get to like level 50 and you go back to the level 1 zone and you're just chopping off everybody's head and getting meager loot. That's how everything that is sent to me by people feels. Like it's so easy.
It's just like level 1 weapons that you have no use for.
And like, it's just, there's no challenge in it. And when I say that, it's like, I'm framing it almost like, it's my intention to debunk Tartaria theory. I didn't start out that way, but everything I look at is deceptive by these content creators. So at this point, I have naturally just aligned myself as being anti this bullshit because there's been nothing to it that has had any substance. What substance there is, I found myself, and they didn't even put forward.
Yeah, that was right.
Like the courthouse that we looked at.
Yeah. Well, but here's the other thing. I think the way an audience benefits, especially yours, maybe more than mine, because I feel like I've been training my audience, especially with like a healthy dose of the Nathan Oakleys and stuff for over a decade. But your audience who may have been attracted to this stuff is real time if they've never had this like foundational way of learning how to think and attack things or address things. They're getting this. And at the very least, they're going to look at this and go, okay, I see what he's doing now. And I see why there's a concern for me to just go along and talk with something because it's sensational, and hopefully some of those people will come around and change their own thinking. And it's like getting cured. Once you have a foundational way of using like the trivium, which is input, processing, and output, you can't be fooled and you can't be swept up anymore unless you agree to be. And I think the problem is that a lot of people don't know how to think because they come from an education system that doesn't really care about teaching them that. And so they they make decisions based on how they feel. And I think when you can cater to mystery and making, things exciting like that, it's so much easier to get caught up in. And what I hope is that we don't want to offend you if you're somebody who looked at this and actually took it serious. A lot of the people that are being aggressive in comments and all that other stuff, they're actually not the people we're trying to reach. They're the disingenuous types. They're the people who are like, you're ruining our grift. You're ruining it. What are you doing? And there's like a territorial vibe that's being projected at us.
I don't want to attack the audience who enjoys Luminary Lighthouse or other stuff. I don't blame them for not having the time or the skill set to look really closely and scrutinize these things. But hopefully, this is a learning experience for them, that there were so many tells with this content right away that did not pass the sniff test without you even needing to look into it more deeply, that you could just, as soon as somebody tells you secret journals and fails to produce the journal, you're out.
That's
I'm
it.
out.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that is it. You have to come, as Nathan says, you have to come with the cowbell. Where's the cowbell?
Yeah. And I don't blame the audience for getting caught up into it. It's like you said, it's mysterious, exciting. There's the fact that we do see so much reason to suspect authority in our world, that, of course, suspecting that we've been lied to about history is natural to a truth-minded and skeptical person. It's just, this is not a replacement narrative that holds water.
Well, Logan, I don't know you, never met you, never talked to you. It's my first time. I hope you are a sincere man. And if you are, I hope this is a learning experience and not an experience where you get triggered and lash out because somebody didn't like the quality of your work. I hope you take this and say, okay, if I want to get better and recapture credibility, I need to figure out why I went along with this garbage and why I put my own reputation on the line by publishing this. And the reason this is important is because even if you become one of the better researchers of your era, if that is online, people are always going to go back to that and remember, they're going to use that against you when you do have a good case to make about something. And we're just trying to help you. Now that I know that you actually reached out to Chance, and Chance isn't just like picking this up, like you reached out to him with what seems like sincerity, that you wanted Chance to look into your work. Fair enough. So don't take this the wrong way, but you have to raise your standards, my guy. Just have to.
Yeah, just address this. Yeah, it doesn't have to even be big. Just be like, you know what, that stuff I did with Jack, it doesn't check out.
We've all had to do this, and it's not a big deal. You address it and you move on, and you make the necessary adjustments or retractions, and it's fine. Life goes on, and nobody cares. It's when you refuse to acknowledge you messed up or refuse to change things that people will hold it against you.
Yeah, and the people that already like you and your stuff will be more endeared to you and more supportive of you whenever you can correct when you were wrong, say I was wrong. Because otherwise, if any of them figure it out on their own or stumble across my video, you don't even have to name me. I don't care. Just correct it. Otherwise, like Dylan said, no credibility. And that's not a good place to be in.
It's good for short term if you're getting the ratings, right? But everything comes to an end eventually. And the way you outlast everybody is through credibility, because there's always going to be a new generation. And if your credibility holds up, when this generation fades out and maybe your ratings go down for a little bit, someone's going to rediscover. And as long as it holds up, it'll come back into the light again. Yep.
Anyway, hey, let's get out of here, man. This is getting a little long in the tooth. It was fun hang.
Right. Likewise. Good seeing you. And
see you, buddy. We'll do this again real soon.
Perfect. Have a good one.